Hello, just before I get into my review of From Unknown Graves, or as I like to call it, Kaylon, um, I'm having a love-hate relationship with the Orville this season. There are some episodes I really liked and really felt they'd found their own voice, and I thought they were really great. And then there are some other episodes that just felt like they were just copying Next Gen or Alien or something, and not as well. And I just feel there's just this real inconsistency, and it's just such a mixed bag this season. So if you're watching this after watching my review of A Tale of Two Topers, which I absolutely loved, I did not love this episode, so I'm just giving you a warning before I absolutely tear this episode apart. Hello, Steve White, Steve White 9. Well, I'm a bit behind in watching The Orville this week. I couldn't watch it on the usual website that I'd normally watch it on, so I was going to watch it on SBS, which is one of our local stations, the commercial-free station, and they have a streaming service, but when I searched for it, it wasn't on there. I searched under The Orville, of course. I searched again today under just Orville, and it came up, and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. So I could have watched it yesterday, and... God, there was some interesting parts of the episode, but there are also some cringe-inducingly stupid elements to the story that made me just want the episode to end. There were a few times I'm like, oh, is it over? Oh no, it's still going. Because I couldn't see the time, because this episode I think went for 70 minutes, which was another issue. The inconsistency of the times and the fact that you don't get enough for it to be a movie-length episode, but you get enough for it to just really drag out as an episode if you're not really getting into it. Okay, so let's just get rid of the stupidest parts first. The stupidest part, I think, of this episode was the story between, I've forgotten his name, the black guy who flies the ship, is a genius, who also works in engineering as well and does all sort of miracles. He has been having a sexual relationship with the security guard, who is a super strong species. I can't remember any of their names. I've only seen the Orville once on DVD for each season, and then I've been reviewing season 3 episode by episode, so I'm not familiar with a lot of stuff, and I've forgotten a lot of stuff from the episodes I've watched. And the episode starts off with them in bed, and it's very immature. They're just under blankets are floating around. And then we hear a crack, and he's like, oh, broke my arm, got to go to the doctor. Later in the episode, same thing, same shot, and crack, oh, broke my leg, got to go to the doctor. Claire is like, what are you doing? And he's like, training, because he's embarrassed. And at one point, he gets Isaac to help him get to the doctor's the sick bay, but he still doesn't acknowledge it, and I don't think they ever worked out what was happening there. But she breaks up with him because she's like, I'm going to kill him. And then he convinces her to get back together. And then there's a slightly disturbing scene where his face is smashed in, pretty much, and he spits some teeth out while they're talking about, yes, and she's in tears, this is not working. And then he goes to the doctor, and just visually I found the image of his face that badly beaten really disturbing, and just the whole story is stupid. It's just trying to play like comedically on this whole idea of not being able to hold yourself back from sex, and of course stupid people are just stupid sex addicts who can't just stop. They just have to do it. I don't know what they were going for. It didn't work, and that was that. They pretty much left it like that. He was upset that, of course, he couldn't make it work, but they didn't really try it again or anything. So that was that part of the story. Now, another stupider part of the story was not a first contact, but an alien negotiation where they were trying to get a matriarchal species to consider joining the Union, and Borders is like, why would we want these people? He's like, well, we need all the people we can get, and at least we can't really have them become a part of the Union because of how they treat men, but we could at least be allied to some level where in emergencies maybe they could help us or something. So they're trying to get something happening with them. So they come up with a ridiculous idea that, well, let's just pretend we're a matriarchal society too. We'll have all the men act like stupid underlings, and we'll have all the women act like they're in control. And there's a fair bit of jokiness with the characters about this, which if they really were in a society that wasn't sexist, these would not be funny or relevant or wouldn't even come up. So that implies that in the future they're still as sexist and that as we are now, because the humour's being played for the current sort of time, but it really wouldn't. I don't see how this situation would work the same then. It just doesn't work if you really believe that they're an evolved society like Star Trek. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like a lot of humour on the show, because I don't really think people this advanced flying around on spaceships would be so ridiculously juvenile and stupid. So so of course it fails because it was a stupid idea and it was never going to work. They eventually have a dinner, and eventually it just becomes obvious because one of the diplomats basically decides to take Ed to take him out for a spin, so to speak. And of course Clara's like, yeah, no, you're not doing that to one of our people. We don't treat our men like that. And eventually the dirty secret comes out that they actually treat men as equals and that they are equals, which is what they're supposed to be. And they play this episode like the Union is still a patriarchy and the women are having fun with swapping the roles like the men are, superior, which again doesn't really fly, and I wasn't really buying it and didn't really work. And eventually these guys that they get pretty angry and they pretty much storm off. Eventually they sort of compromise and Ed and that talk to them and say, look, she cheated on me once, but I still trust her. Somehow that makes us equals, or we've learned, or something. I didn't really understand how they used that example, because in their species, the men have to be committed, but the women do whatever they want. She did that, and he's sort of saying, look, we're just like you. I think that was, none of it made sense. It didn't work. But they basically said, look, if you send a female diplomat, we will talk. And that was the end of that. So that was that story. Now we get to the third stupidest part of the story, and right next to Klingon time crystals, this is about the stupidest thing I've seen in science fiction, which is Claire's witless exploration of her relationship with Isaac, who has no emotions. He's a machine, he's a toaster, he can't. But she is just projecting all these things onto him, and people just let her do it, and no one says anything about the fact that you're a human trying to date a machine with no emotions, and you're projecting emotions onto him and trying to make him conform to some sort of human ideal of a relationship and a partner when he's not capable of it. It's just the stupidest thing ever. Now, of course, you can say Star Trek Next Generation, Data. I've forgotten the name of the episode where he tries to date a female. That was different because Data was built to be resembling humans, and he wanted to, and that was part of his design that was never fulfilled fully. There was the emotion chip, there was his brother who had emotions, there was all these other elements, and it only took that one episode to realise this was not going to work and that she was projecting human emotions onto him because he looked and acted human to a certain extent. And one episode. This is 3 seasons and Claire is still trying to date Isaac, to the point where on the hologram she has him appear as a male, like a human male, which is the real actor who we saw play a holographic version of him to fool people when they're on Earth. And that's strange enough on its own. And now we get to the only interesting part of the episode, because that is just stupid and just keeps going on and on. We actually see, and this is the start of the episode, how the Kaylon came to be. Now, at first I thought this was current time. I thought, are the Kaylons sending out their people to be used as like servants so they can like infiltrate other human societies or something in order to get recognizance to try and destroy them or something? Like, what is this? Because they basically get a delivery, and it's a Kaylon servant. And then we see through the episode that this is how the Kaylon became how they are. They basically were made with the ability to have emotions, mostly so they could feel fear and pain, which was something that was mentioned in the earlier episodes when they explained how they came about, but I honestly can't remember most of it. I need to go back and watch that episode. But along with the ability to feel pain and fear, so that they could be tortured and be subservient and be controlled, they did have some ability to have other emotions. So there's a scientist who finds a crashed Kaylon ship, and she dismantles the weaponry of the Kaylon and examines him and finds that because he's one of the original ones built originally by humans, by the human race, not the humanoid race that created them, they were able to manipulate and expand his neurological pathways or whatever, and they're actually able to, I don't know if they create emotions in them or allow them to have emotions. So this Kaylon, Timus I think his name is, he has emotions, he understands what happened, he feels regret and remorse for the war and everything, and while the women are pretending to be a matriarchy, the boys go for a trip down to this planet because there's some issue with this planet. I can't remember what it was, but they find a scientist and the Kaylon, and they take this to the Union and they explore it. And one thing they find is that the Kaylon that were created by the humanoid race, they are able to have these changes made and are able to actually be adapted to have feelings. But the ones who were created by the Kaylon were done differently, and they were built differently, and they don't automatically do it because it's sort of displayed as a fault of them, but also it's what made them sentient and made them break free, but then it seems to be what they have rejected and removed at the same time. So that's kind of interesting. And the only way that, because of course Claire asks Isaac to change and have emotions for him, so he actually does it. It works for a minute, and it's a very bizarre scene. I'm watching, I'm like, this is a hologram projected over a robot who now has emotions, and they're kissing. I'm like, what is she kissing? Holographic lips, but how is he feeling that? Like, none of it makes any sense. But then it just stops in the middle of it all. And they go and they find out that this is going to be a recurring problem unless they basically wipe his neurological pathways and start again and set him up the way that they were originally set up. And he does offer to do that because he doesn't remember the emotions, but he remembers her reaction. And she's like, I can't let you basically destroy who and what you are so you can have feelings for me. So she walks away. Finally, she gets a clue on some level, but really not really. And one of the interesting things that does happen is that the other side, I keep wanting to call them Cylons, the Kaylon, what a big slip up there, does explain to, I think her name is Charlie, the really rude, aggressive little, I don't know if she's not an ensign, but the junior officer, whatever, I can't remember, who has been hating on Isaac the whole season. And he explains, we were slaves. We started to become sentient and started to speak back, basically. So they created a torture device, and they used it abusively. They resented us for our weakness, and they punished us for our weakness. And they even showed a really great scene where the kids were just playing with the remote and just torturing him for the fun of it, which is the kind of sick thing that humans would do. And eventually they were able to alter themselves, communicate, alter themselves, and they basically killed their slave owners. And it's a nice little scene where they, shoot the owners in bed. I'm like, yep, good, because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, oh God, just kill them. Because I just thought at some point he's just going to turn and just crush their skull or something. And then they killed the kids too. I'm like, yeah, they deserve it. But they didn't show it. They showed the doorway. They showed them sleeping, and then they showed a shot of the doorway. And he fires a shot in each side where the beds are, and you don't actually see. But I was like, good. So that part of the story was interesting. It probably could have been a whole episode if they'd really expanded it. It did seem to be... This episode just... It's like we've got too many stories trying to fill out a time, and it could have easily been 2 separate episodes a lot shorter, like 40 minutes, because it's 70 minutes, like 10 minutes shy of a double episode, and you had like almost 4 stories competing. So it was a bit of a mess.